The tiny visitor in his bloodied palm, the battlefield was quiet now. Only smoke moved. The sky was red, and fire burned in the distance. Broken machines and bodies lay across the ground. Everything was destroyed. Eric, a human soldier, walked slowly. His arm was bleeding. One eye was swollen shut, but he was still alive. He searched for other survivors, but the comms were dead. No voices replied, just silence. He moved a piece of metal off the ground. Something under it moved. He stepped back, pointing his gun. A small shape curled up in the dirt. It was tiny, no bigger than his hand. At first he thought it was some kind of animal, but then it looked at him, big glowing eyes, silver skin, long hair that floated like smoke. Its body was shaking. It looked scared. Eric lowered his weapon. "What are you?" he whispered. The tiny being didn't answer. It just kept staring. Its tiny hands covered its face like it expected to be hit. Eric looked around. No one was nearby. He could kill it. He could walk away. But instead, he crouched down and offered his hand. The creature didn't move. Gently, Eric placed his hand on the ground, palm up. The small girl looked at it. Slowly, very slowly, she crawled into his palm. She was hurt. Her leg was bleeding. Her back was burned. Eric could feel how light she was, like a feather. Her heart was beating fast, so fast he thought it might explode. He lifted her up carefully. She gasped and shut her eyes. She thought he would eat her. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "You're safe." She didn't believe him. Eric walked toward the half-destroyed outpost nearby. The roof was cracked but still standing. Inside, he found a med kit, some water, and half a protein bar. He sat on the floor, placed the girl on a piece of cloth. She didn't run. She was too weak. He poured a little water in a cap and placed it near her. She stared at it, then at him. Then she sipped. Eric smiled. "Good," he said. She looked up, confused. "You understand me?" She nodded. "A little." He opened the protein bar, broke off the smallest piece. She sniffed it, touched it, tasted it. Her eyes widened. She ate the rest, fast, like she hadn't eaten in days. "What's your name?" Eric asked. The girl didn't speak, but she touched her chest and said very quietly, "Lyra." "Lyra," Eric repeated. "I'm Eric." She watched him. Her body was still tense, but less now. He pulled out the med kit and reached for her burned arm. She backed away fast. She shook her head. "It's okay," he said. "I won't hurt you." She didn't believe that either, but her eyes watched as he cleaned his own wound first. She saw him flinch at the pain. He didn't scream, just worked. Then he held up the bandage. She gave him her arm. He worked slowly, wrapped it gently. When it was done, he smiled again. "See? All better." But she wasn't smiling. She was crying. Eric felt panic. "Did I hurt you?" She shook her head. He didn't understand. Then she said it in a whisper so soft it almost disappeared. "Why, didn't you eat me?" Eric blinked. "What?" "You're a human," she said. "You eat little ones." He laughed, not cruelly, gently, like the kind of laugh someone makes when they understand something sad. "No," he said. "We don't, not me." Lyra looked at him like he was lying, like the stories she had heard couldn't be wrong, but her body was tired. She curled into a small ball and lay on the cloth. She didn't take her eyes off him. Not even when she closed them. Eric sat beside her, guarding the door. His gun rested beside him. In that broken outpost with smoke still in the air, a giant human and a tiny alien shared the silence. Outside, the war was not over. But something else had started. Something strange. Something small. Something powerful. She thought he was a monster. Lyra woke up to the sound of thunder, but it wasn't the sky. It was Eric's breathing. He was asleep, slouched against the wall, his chest rising and falling like a machine struggling to keep going. Dried blood stained his uniform. His gun was still in his lap. Even in sleep, he looked dangerous. She didn't move. She only watched. Back on her homeworld, they told stories about humans. Tall, brutal, loud. They didn't ask for peace. They took it. They were monsters that crushed whole cities just by walking through them. Her people called them sky eaters. And now, one of them had her. Yet, she was still alive. Lyra sat up slowly. Her wounds ached. The bandage he gave her was warm, soft, not metal. It smelled like medicine, not poison. But why? Why would a monster waste bandages? She crept toward his bag. One wrong move and he could wake. She needed to know who he was, why he helped her, and if he would change. Inside the bag she found pictures. A woman, a boy, a house with green fields. Family? She looked back at him. Can monsters love? Then Eric moved. His eyes opened, sharp, alert, trained like a soldier. He saw her hand in his bag. She froze. His hand reached for his gun. She screamed, "No, please." Eric stopped. His fingers twitched but didn't grab the weapon. Instead, he raised his other hand slowly, like someone calming a wild animal. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe." She trembled. Her heart pounded. Her skin flashed colors, from fear, bright red to pale white, a defense reaction from her species. To Eric, it looked like she was blinking in fear. "You were reaching for food?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. He lowered his gaze and took out a ration, split it again, placed the small piece near her. She didn't eat. "Not yet." "Why? Do you help me?" she asked. Eric blinked. Lyra's voice was tiny, her accent thick like someone who learned his language by listening to screams and orders. "You could kill me. Why not?" He looked at her, eyes heavy with war. "Because someone helped me once," he said. "I didn't forget." Lyra didn't understand. "Who?" "A man, during the old Earth Wars. He didn't have to pull me out of that fire, but he did." "Was he human?" "No," Eric said. "He was one of yours." She stared at him. That couldn't be true. Her people had never helped humans. They'd always fought them, but his eyes didn't lie. "What's happening outside?" she asked. "They're searching," he said. "Both sides, scanning ruins, looking for survivors. Or enemies." "What are we?" Eric didn't answer right away. "We're ghosts now," he finally said. "You and me." Suddenly the floor shook. Eric jumped to his feet. He looked at his scanner, a red dot moving fast. Lyra crawled behind a box. "They found us." "Stay down," he whispered. A shadow passed the crack in the wall, then another. They weren't human. They were her people. Soldiers, 6 of them. Tall armor, glowing rifles. One of them shouted, "Signal found! Someone's alive!" Eric held his gun, aimed at the door. Sweat dripped down his face. "Don't shoot," Lyra whispered. "They'll kill you." "They'll kill you too," he said. A blast hit the door. It exploded open. Lyra screamed. Eric fired once, then again. One soldier fell. The rest returned fire. But something strange happened. Lyra ran between them. She raised her hands. "Stop. Don't shoot, stop." The soldiers hesitated. "Princess?" one of them said. She nodded, shaking. "Yes, I'm alive, and he saved me." "You're with the human?" another asked, confused and angry. "He didn't harm me," she shouted. "He gave me food, water. He treated my wounds." The leader raised his rifle, pointed it at Eric. "Doesn't matter, he's an enemy. Orders are clear. No humans survive." Lyra stepped in front of the gun. "Then you shoot me first." Silence. Eric stared at her. Even the soldiers froze. Then the leader growled. "You've been brainwashed." "No," she said. "I've been awakened." That moment changed everything. In the middle of a broken building with smoke still rising and blood on the walls, a tiny alien girl stood in front of a human giant and called him a protector. The soldiers didn't know what to do, so they called it in, and soon, everything would spiral out of control. The trap meant for him, a steel cage dropped from the sky with a deafening clang. The moment Lyra stepped outside the ruined building, holding Eric's bloodied hand, the trap snapped shut around them. 6 walls of shimmering energy rose from the ground, blue, humming, crackling with force. Invisible seconds ago, now glowing like a net of stars, they were caught. Above them, 3 dropships hovered, alien banners on their wings. The Royal Guard, soldiers surrounded the energy cage. Some pointed rifles, others just watched. None moved to help. Lyra looked up, panic in her eyes. This wasn't for me. Eric didn't speak. He was scanning the trap, hand resting on his weapon but not drawing it yet. A deep, robotic voice echoed from one of the ships. The human is property of the Galactic Tribunal. Stand back, Princess. Lyra stepped in front of Eric. He's not your prisoner. He's my savior. The voice responded coldly. You do not have clearance to make that decision. Suddenly, the trap's energy field surged. Eric winced. His skin felt like it was burning. He dropped to one knee. Turn it off, Lyra screamed. He's in pain. The soldiers didn't react. They were waiting for something. Then one stepped forward, different from the rest. Tall, black armor, a red crest on his helmet. His name was Commander Sovak. He removed his helmet. His face was cold, gray-skinned, lined by scars from 100 battles. One eye was missing, replaced with a glowing orb. He looked at Lyra, then at Eric, then spoke. You're interfering with classified military orders, Your Highness. Lyra didn't flinch. Your orders were to find survivors. He is a survivor. He's human, Sovak said. That makes him a war criminal by default. Eric stood up, shaking but steady. I didn't start this war. No, Sovak said, but you're part of it, and our laws don't care who started it. They care who's alive at the end. He raised his hand. The soldiers moved in, unlocking the cage. Eric whispered to Lyra. Don't do anything stupid, she whispered back. I already did. I trusted you. They were pulled apart. Lyra was placed inside a floating orb cage. Gentle, respectful. But Eric? They chained his wrists, forced him to his knees, and placed a shock collar on his neck. He didn't resist, but his eyes met Sovak's. And something passed between them, a silent warning. The ships lifted off. As they rose into the clouds, Lyra kept staring at Eric from her glowing cage. He was seated like an animal, blood still on his face, bruises darkening his jaw, but eyes still burning with strength. She felt sick. They arrived at a high-orbit station known as Vale 1, a black circle above the planet. It was not a prison. It was worse. It was a holding chamber for those waiting to die under law. Lyra's people believed in quick justice, but this was political, slow, filled with hidden power plays. Eric was placed in a metal cell, transparent, walls, electric floor, cameras in every corner. No food, no water, just light and pressure. They wanted to break him. Sovak visited once. You're not the first human to land here, he said, but you might be the last. Eric didn't reply. Sovak smiled. You'll enjoy the trial. It's always nice when the galaxy watches you die. He left meanwhile. Lyra stormed into the royal chamber, still wrapped in emergency robes. The council stared at her. Tall figures, faces hidden by masks of gold and pearl. They bowed slightly. Not fully. She was not on the throne yet. Why is he being treated like a beast? She shouted. He is a beast, one elder replied. He saved me, Lyra cried. He healed my wounds. He could have run or killed me. He did neither, another elder said calmly. A snake might warm itself on your hand before biting. No, she said. You want him dead not because he's dangerous, but because he's proof that what we believe is wrong. The chamber fell quiet. One elder spoke. "Do you love this creature?" "I don't know," Lyra whispered. "But I trust him more than I trust you." They called for a vote. 3 days later, Lyra was denied access to the prisoner, but she had already planned something. Inside the station, Eric waited for judgment. But he didn't know that Lyra was hacking into the security systems. She had allies, quiet ones. Scientists, rebels, dreamers. And soon, the galaxy would see something it wasn't ready for. A human giant, and a glowing silver alien girl standing side by side, holding hands, while the Empire tried to decide which one to silence. First, a royal secret in a tiny frame. Inside the deep core of Veil One, the prison turned palace. Eric sat in silence. His arms were chained to the chair. Lights blazed in his face. Soldiers stood at every wall. Their weapons were quiet, but ready. A judge's platform hovered above, unseen figures behind golden masks. Outside the glass walls, a crowd gathered. Aliens from many species filled the viewing deck. They had come for the trial, to watch a human die. Eric didn't speak. His lips were cracked, his face unshaved, his eyes tired, but not afraid. On the other side of the station, Lyra stood in front of her reflection. Her silver skin was dull. She wore royal robes now, soft silk, glowing embroidery, and a silver crest over her heart, the symbol of her bloodline, the Empire's future queen. But Lyra didn't feel royal. Not today. She turned to the mirror, held her breath, and pulled. The crest off her chest. Underneath on her skin was a tiny mark. A pattern of 3 stars shaped like a crown. The hidden truth. A royal bloodline tattoo. Only 2 beings alive had this mark, her father and her. But no one else knew. Not the council, not the people, not even Sovak. If she showed it, they'd have to listen, or it would mean war. She placed her hand over the stars and whispered, "This is the only way." The trial began. Inside the chamber, Eric was brought before the tribunal. He stood under a spotlight, hands still chained, collar still glowing. An announcer's voice echoed across the station. "The following trial is broadcast live to the 10 systems. Accused, 1 human soldier. Charges: destruction, war crimes, trespassing into protected zones, and unlawful possession of a member of the royal species." Gasps filled the viewing deck. Lyra. That last part was about her. Eric looked up. Behind the glass, 1,000 alien eyes watched him, but he didn't care about them. He searched for one face, one small figure. Where was she? In a dark hallway above the court, Lyra crouched beside a control panel. Her ally, a tech-born named Tenrix, was sweating oil. "I can break the feed," he said, "but only for 10 seconds. 10 is enough," Lyra replied. Tenrix pulled a final wire. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes," she said. Then she jumped. Inside the court, the lights flickered. The feed stuttered. A small body dropped from above. Soldiers shouted. Some aimed. Others stepped back. And then silence. The tiny figure stood on the center platform beside the accused. It was Lyra, in her royal robes, and bare-chested, so all could see the glowing tattoo of 3 stars on her silver skin. Gasps exploded across the chamber. Then silence again. "She has the royal mark. Is that real? What is she doing with the human?" The judges spoke at once. "Guards, remove her." But Lyra raised her voice high and clear. "I claim the right of first judgment." The court froze. That right was ancient, never used, older than their war, older than the Empire. It gave any royal, no matter how small, the power to speak first before judgment was made. Denied. One judge tried, but another said, "No, we must allow it." Lyra turned to the galaxy. "This human saved me when everyone else was killing. I was injured, broken, small, and afraid. But he didn't harm me. He didn't treat me like food. He gave me water, bandaged my wounds, and when I was too scared to speak, he listened. You say he's a monster, but I lived with him. He didn't eat me. He didn't torture me. He protected me. The stories you told us, they were lies. They made us hate what we didn't know. Sovak stepped into the room. His voice was ice. This is treason. She's too young, too emotional. I'm old enough to wear the crown, Lyra said, turning to face him. But not old enough to speak the truth? Is that what you want? He's still guilty, Sovak snapped. He trespassed. So did we, Lyra said. We bombed first. We broke the peace, the judges whispered. The crowd murmured. And if you punish him, she said softly, then punish me too, because I stood beside him. She stepped next to Eric, placing her hand on his shoulder. For a moment, no one breathed. Then a green light blinked above one. Judge, one vote for innocence. A red light blinked from another. Guilty. Then another red. Then a pause. The final judge hadn't voted. He leaned forward. His voice was deep and slow. If we find him guilty, what will your people say, Princess? They will remember that justice was never about size, she said, or species, or fear. They'll remember we murdered the wrong giant. The final light blinked. Green. Gasps filled the chamber. Tie, which meant only one thing. The vote passed to the Empire's leader, the council sovereign. But the sovereign was dying, and his last message, hidden in a sealed code, had one line: if ever the stars fail, trust the smallest hand. Chamber exploded in noise, because now, Lyra would have the deciding vote. The trial of the giant. The courtroom was silent. Too silent. Like the breath of the galaxy had stopped. Lyra stood in the center, her tiny hand still resting on Eric's shoulder. Around them, 10,000 eyes watched from the glass deck above. News drones hovered. Judges froze in their golden seats. The lights of judgment had tied. 2 for guilt, 2 for mercy. And now, all eyes turned to her, the smallest one, the one no one expected to survive, let alone decide the fate of a war. This is not law, Commander Sovak growled, stepping forward. She is a child. Her emotions blind her. This is a court, not a storybook. One of the judges turned to him. She carries the sovereign's seal. And his final command. Another nodded. By ancient law, the next royal in line may cast the deciding judgment. Sovak's eyes burned. This isn't justice, this is chaos. Eric looked at Lyra, her hands were shaking. He leaned closer, whispered low, You don't have to do this for me. She looked up at him, blinking slowly. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because no one else will. Then she turned to the judges, her voice strong and clear. You ask if the human is guilty. Yes, he is guilty. Gasps. Eric's eyes widened, she continued. He is guilty of being born human, of growing up with war around him, of being dropped on our soil without a map, without a choice. He is guilty of believing he would die in that broken battlefield until he saw me. And instead of leaving me, he carried me, fed me, healed me. And when I was afraid, he waited. So yes, he is guilty. She took a breath. But if that is a crime, then we should all be judged. One judge leaned forward. Princess Lyra, what is your final decision? She looked out at the crowd beyond the glass. I choose mercy. A light above her head blinked green. Then a second light followed. The system had accepted the final vote. A deep voice echoed across the court. By the will of the royal house, the accused is declared not guilty. Chaos erupted. Some cheered, others screamed. Half the courtroom began to argue, but Eric didn't hear them. His chains unlatched with a soft click. His arms dropped free. He turned to Lyra, eyes full of shock, gratitude, and something else. Respect. You just saved my life, he whispered. You saved mine first, she said. But peace never lasts long in a broken galaxy. Not when someone wants war to continue. Not when truth is dangerous. Commander Sovak's eyes narrowed. He turned away quietly and pressed a hidden button on his wrist. In the loading bay below the court, a silent protocol activated. Dark-armored soldiers moved without a word. They were not regular troops. They were black orders. Operatives who answered only to command. They had one mission now. Erase the human. Erase the girl. Restore the story. Meanwhile, Lyra and Eric were taken to the royal quarters inside Vale 1. Guards surrounded them, but not to protect, to watch. Lyra looked around. Her chambers were large and gold-lined. Soft walls, high ceilings, too much space for someone so small. "They're not happy," she said. "No," Eric replied. "They're just waiting." "For what?" "For the next reason to kill me." That night, a servant delivered food, strange meat, fruit soaked in silver liquid, bread that shimmered in the light. Eric didn't touch it. "It could be poisoned," he said. Lyra tasted a piece. "It's not." "How do you know?" "Because if they wanted us dead," she said. Quietly, "they wouldn't waste food." She smiled sadly. "They'd just send Sovak. They didn't sleep. Not really. And when morning came, morning in orbit was just a change in lights. They were told they'd be moved. The capital wants to meet the giant," a voice said through the door. But Eric knew something felt wrong. His instincts screamed. They weren't being taken to a celebration. They were being walked into a trap. As they entered the shuttle dock, soldiers flanked them, but not the same kind. These wore black, moved like shadows. "No insignias," Lyra clutched Eric's finger. Her entire hand barely wrapped around it. "These aren't royal guards," she whispered. "No," he said. "They're not." The doors sealed. Inside, the pilot turned his head, but he wasn't a pilot. He was Sovak. "Did you think this story had a happy ending?" He sneered. Eric moved. Too slow. A shock pulse hit his chest. White light flashed. He dropped. Lyra screamed. Sovak grabbed her by the back of her neck. "You were supposed to die in that rubble," he hissed. "You ruined everything." She bit his wrist. He shouted, but didn't let go. "Your mercy just started a war," Sovak growled. "And now you'll watch it burn." Outside the ship, no one knew. The trial was over. But the real fight had just begun. And now, the girl who saved the giant was about to risk her crown to bring him back from the edge of death. She defied the stars for him. The ship vanished into deep orbit. No beacon, no escort, no broadcast. To the galaxy, it looked like Princess Lyra and the human giant had safely departed for the capital. But inside the black steel craft, horror was unfolding. Eric lay chained again. His chest burned, still twitching from the shock pulse. His body slumped, unmoving, eyes half open, barely conscious, but still alive. Lyra sat trapped inside a force cube no bigger than a closet. The energy field hummed cold and close to her skin, just inches from her face. Her silver robes were torn. Her crown was gone. Commander Sovak stood over her. His eyes weren't filled with hate. They were filled with order. A terrifying robotic belief in the system. "You don't understand what you've done," he said calmly. "You just gave the galaxy a reason to question us." "Good," Lyra spat. "It needs questioning." "No, it needs control." He tapped the cage wall. "And once your broadcast is buried and the human is gone, things will return to normal." Lyra looked at Eric, bleeding, broken. "He saved me," she said. "And you only saved your power." Sovak laughed, bitterly. "You think this is about power?" "No, child, it's about survival. Your father knew this, your grandfather too." He turned and walked toward the back of the ship where a containment pod was being prepared, a coffin. Cold stasis for Eric. But Lyra wasn't done. Not yet. She closed her eyes and focused. Her people had an ability, rare, ancient, taught only to royals, bio-signal manipulation, the power to speak through machines, not with words, but with emotion. She slowed her heart, controlled her breath, and began to push her pulse outward, through her hands, through the metal floor, through the air. In a rebel station orbiting the moon of Ashel 9, a young technician was sipping synth tea when his comms terminal blinked, just once. Then again. It wasn't a message. It was a feeling. He paused, checked the source impossible, a royal code, Lyra. He jumped from his seat. "Get me Tenrix," he shouted. "Now!" Back on the ship, Sovak activated the pod. Cold mist filled the chamber. Eric was lifted by invisible arms. His body sagged like a puppet. "Once he's sealed, he'll disappear forever," Sovak said. "A weapon no one will believe existed, and a story no one will remember," Lyra screamed. But her voice hit the cube's walls and bounced back. Hopeless, until, boom, the ship jolted. Lights blinked. Sovak stumbled. Alarms blared. "External impact," a soldier shouted. "A strike drone just hit us. Where did it come from?" Then another boom. Louder. The engines shook, the walls cracked, and from the shadows outside the ship, a rebel cruiser uncloaked. Its symbol, a broken crown wrapped in fire. They weren't part of the Empire. They were those who believed Lyra. Inside, Sovak shouted, "Shields up. Get us out of here now." "We're locked," the pilot cried. "They've hacked our thrusters. Override it." "I can't. They're inside the system." The ship's walls opened in a flash. Rebel boarders stormed in. 2 species, both small, one insect-like. With glowing wings, the other reptilian with cracked metal armor. They shot fast. Precise. Non-lethal rounds. They stunned the guards but spared lives. One ran to Lyra's cube, scanning the walls. "Your signal worked, Princess." Lyra gasped. "Eric, get him out, please," the reptilian nodded. "We're trying." Sovak grabbed his sidearm. Shot one rebel clean through the chest, another turned and fired. But Sovak escaped down a side tunnel. Coward's route. In the pod chamber, Eric was inside the coffin, barely alive. The mist had filled the pod already. 30 seconds more and it would seal. Lyra ran to him, her feet burned from the cube's floor. She reached his face through the crack. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please, Eric, you have to stay." He twitched barely. She looked at the rebel medic. "Override the pod." "Working on it." Tenrix's voice came through the comms. "Don't let it seal, Lyra. If it closes, he'll go into stasis and the system will dump him into deep space. Then hurry." She screamed. Beeps lights. A final hiss. The pod cracked open. Steam burst out. Eric's body dropped into her arms. His eyes opened. Barely. "You again?" he croaked. She laughed, sobbed, held him tighter. "You came back," he whispered. "I never left." Meanwhile, Sovak reached the escape hatch. His face was twisted with fury. This wasn't over. The girl may have escaped, the human may have lived, but the Empire still stood. He launched a beacon, a final order. Activate Protocol Red Dust. Across the galaxy, in Empire-controlled systems, weapons activated. Satellites blinked. Ships turned, because Sovak's final move wasn't just revenge. It was extinction. As Lyra's ship pulled away from the broken craft, Eric sat on a medbed, half-conscious, a fresh scar on his neck. She sat beside him, hand resting over his. "You defied your people," he said weakly. "Your throne," she smiled. "I defied the stars for you." "Why?" She looked at him, soft, serious. "Because you showed me the truth," she whispered. "That even giants can be gentle." But outside, Sovak's plan was already in motion. A red glow was spreading through the Empire's communication grid. A signal to cleanse the records, erase the trial, and wipe out the ones who dared to challenge history. The human giant was now a symbol, and symbols are dangerous, especially when they refuse to die, when giants become legends. They thought the signal would be hidden, silent and unnoticed. But Sovak's final command, Protocol Red Dust, had been seen. Not by the Empire, not by the courts, but by everyone else. Because when Sovak tried to erase the truth, something unexpected happened. Lyra's broadcast didn't disappear. It multiplied. Rebels, smugglers, rogue AI satellites, sympathetic engineers, even a pirate queen on the dark side of Zyron 6. They all shared the footage. A massive bleeding human giant holding a tiny alien princess with care. A courtroom where the smallest hand chose mercy. A system that tried to silence truth and failed. And the galaxy watched. On board the rebel cruiser, Lyra sat beside Eric, her body pressed against the bed frame. She hadn't left his side in days. The medtechs did what they could. His wounds were healing, but the poison in his blood from the stasis pod made his muscles weak. His thoughts slow, yet his eyes remained sharp. Always watching, always ready. "You know they're coming," he said softly. Lyra nodded. "I know." "You could go," he said. "They might spare you." She smiled. "They might, but then who would protect you?" An alarm rang through the ship. Enemy contacts. 10 ships. Approaching fast, Empire class. No IDs. Flying under blackout codes. The Empire wasn't coming with words. They were coming with fire. In the command room, Tenrix pointed at the display. "They'll be in range in 5 minutes. Our cloaking is dead. They'll find us." "What about allies?" Lyra asked. He shook his head. "Too far, and most are scared. If they come to help you, they become targets, too." Lyra turned to Eric. "And can you move?" He stood slowly. His legs shook, but he stood. "Then I guess it's time to stop hiding," he said. They went to the hangar. There stood the last remaining weapon from the old human wars, a massive exoframe suit, once used to break mountains, now forgotten. "What is this?" Lyra asked. "This," Eric said, "was built in secret by humans in case the stars turned against them. You know how to use it?" "No," he smiled. "But I'm gonna try." Outside, the Empire ships opened fire. Beams of light cracked across space. The rebel cruiser shook. One hit nearly tore through the hull. Inside the hangar, Eric stepped. Into the exosuit it hissed, clamped, locked. Lights glowed red, then green. The HUD lit up. Manual override accepted. Pilot, Eric Dre. Status, Warform active. As the ship trembled, the hangar doors opened and Eric, now towering twice his height, stepped into space. His boots magnetized. Missiles locked onto him. Lyra's voice echoed in his ear. "Be careful." "Not today," he whispered. The first Empire ship fired a torpedo. Eric jumped straight into it. He grabbed it midair and threw it back. Boom! One enemy cruiser exploded. The others began to scatter. "Who is that?" one commander asked. "That's the giant they tried to kill," someone replied. Inside the rebel ship, Lyra activated the emergency beacon. But not just any beacon. A truth pulse. A deep-frequency broadcast designed to shake AI cores and override. Fear-based silence. It was outlawed. But she wasn't asking anymore. Across the galaxy, screens lit up. Hidden stations, pirate dens, corporate towers, farming ships on outer moons. Everyone saw the same thing. A girl, no taller than a child, standing before a galaxy, and a human giant shielding her from death. More ships began to move. Independent fighters, deserter fleets, a mining ship armed with ancient drills. They came one by one, not for war, but for truth. Sovak, watching from a command vessel nearby, smashed his console. "How are they still broadcasting?" His officer replied. "We cut all signals, but it's everywhere. Even our own troops are receiving it." Then scramble the Black Fleet. "Destroy everything." "Sir," the officer whispered, "some of our ships, they're not firing. They've turned away." On the battlefield, Eric's suit was breaking. Missiles tore off one arm. His left leg sparked, dragging as he moved. Still, he didn't stop. He used debris as weapons. His fists broke metal. His body glowed with heat. Inside the suit, blood trickled from his mouth. Lyra screamed through the comm, Get back, you've done enough. Not yet, he said. Just one more step. Then through the smoke. A light. Bright. Loud. Hope. The first Allied cruiser jumped into orbit, then another, then 20. Sovak watched the battlefield change. His enemies had multiplied. But what broke him was this. One of his own ships turned and opened fire on him. Mutiny. The lie was dead, and Sovak's rule ended not with a war, but with truth. His ship burned. His voice was never heard again. Hours later, silence returned. Space was filled with floating ships, smoke trails, and exhausted pilots. In the wreckage, a massive hand rose from a pile of steel. It was Eric. Alive. Barely. Rebels pulled him out of the broken suit. Lyra ran to him, wrapped her arms around his face, her whole body fitting inside his neck crease. "You idiot," she whispered, sobbing. "You're not allowed to die. Not now." "Wasn't planning to." He smiled weakly. "Too many witnesses." The weeks that followed, peace talks began. Old laws were questioned. Alliances formed. And Lyra became more than a princess. She became a voice. Not for power, but for those no one ever heard. As for Eric, he didn't return to Earth. He stayed, beside her. Some said they were friends. Some said something more. No one really knew, except them. Years later, in a museum on Lyra's homeworld, children stood before a statue. A giant kneeling down, hand open, and, on his palm, a small silver girl, hand on his thumb. A teacher explained, "This is the moment the war ended, when she trusted the giant, and the giant chose peace." A child asked, "Is the story real?" The teacher smiled. "It doesn't matter," she said, "because now it's legend."